Hello and welcome to another video. Happy 2026. At the end of 2025, I really kind of hit a little bit of a roadblock. I was struggling to find a voice, an artistic voice, and I just kind of felt lost from what it is that I wanted to pursue. I had started some little interior paintings and I didn't really like the direction that they were going in, so I decided I'm going to reuse this panel and use it for something else. I typically would sand it down and re-prep it, with a smooth surface to try something else. But instead, I decided, why not do something different? I have tried many different art styles, many different types of painting throughout my sketchbook, and then also outside of my sketchbook. But one of the few things that I have not actually tried before is abstract art. I've always been intimidated by abstract art. I think it's so beautiful, and I think it is so compelling, and there's a little bit of a non-linear storytelling art that can come through with abstract art, but I just felt I don't know, I felt like it wasn't for me. I didn't feel like I knew how to do it. And you know what? I said after a certain point, I just said, I'm going to try. I'm going to use one of these older paintings that I'm not really liking the direction of, and just go for it. So in this video, I am painting over this old painting that I'm not really liking how it's going. And I started off with just some loose, I guess, marks, just putting some paint on the canvas to kind of see what that feels like and see how that goes. I also was listening to a playlist of Amapiano, and something about just like the percussion, just the static beats of it was just really complimented the painting experience of this painting session. So I really enjoyed that part as well. So this painting is also somewhat of a twofer. It's a little bit of me exploring and getting out what this past year felt like for me. 2025 was a tough year for a lot of people, myself included, both personally and professionally. And, as I'm kind of dancing and trying to feel the music and feel all of the emotions that I was feeling from the past year, I thought through some of the color choices and how I wanted to first put those initial paint layers down. In this first session, I started with a lot of deep colors, a lot of phthalo. Phthalo blue was really prominent, and some really deep greens. For some reason, like that almost viridian hued green really spoke to me. Like bluish greens were really, I don't know, for some reason were just really speaking to me. I complemented it by adding in a bit of some deep pinks. For some reason that felt right to me as well. I tried as much as possible to cover up the old painting with this new color. I really didn't want to see any of that old painting come through, and so I really tried to use somewhat thin washes, or thin to medium, I guess, washes. Not really thick paint because I knew I wanted to come over it again, but yeah, I just really wanted to focus on just really covering this first layer, and then also go in and scrape back some things. As I was painting, I was getting again that first initial brushstrokes down, which kind of represented a lot of the deep and darkness that I felt or experienced in 2025. I wanted that to kind of serve as a foundation for the foundation of the painting. There were some really intense moments, as you can see, with the really bright cadmium red light that's appearing in some places, and then also a little bit of orange that's peeking through as well. I also wanted to use my palette knife to kind of scrape back because, like I said, it was a tough year. So there There's definitely some color that came through, but there were also some like rough edges that I needed to, I guess, represent. A bit of a bruising, a bit of a battering that I experienced. And so the palette knife with all of the little scrapes and scratches kind of represents that. I'm also using the palette knife to deposit more color on top as well. I think that that was a really kind of interesting technique. I really enjoyed that. It wasn't as much adding a lot of thick paint, but it did give me a different texture that was a little bit thicker than what I would achieve with the brush. And after that first session, this is what came of it. I knew that there was still some elements of the painting still peeking through, but as a first layer, foundational layer, I felt really relieved to get my thoughts and just feelings out in abstract form onto the canvas. At the start of 2026, I came into the studio really excited to get back to painting and do back to this abstract experiment. I had done a couple of just like loose sketches, as you can kind of see someone in the background. I just felt like figurative was something that I just wanted to kind of get back to. So I did a couple little figurative sketches, but I put those aside and came back to my abstract piece. Now, one thing about abstract, depending on the orientation of the canvas, decides kind of, I guess, the mood and the story that you're trying to tell. So you will see me flip the canvas around a couple different times just to kind of play around with the layout and orientation. And I'm not sure that the orientation I landed on is maybe the right one, but it's the one that we'll end this video on. So. But yeah, as I was going in, the paint had dried a little bit, so I was able to, in some areas, scrape back, kind of use that scraping technique, but also use my brush to deposit more color in areas that dried. The pigments that I had used in the earlier session were more of fast drying pigments. Not so much your cadmium colors, but like more so earth colors are going to just dry a bit faster than your cadmium colors. So I used a lot of those like fast drying colors in the earlier stage, and that helped with me being able to relatively quickly come back in and add more colors. Now, I had a great time with using some solvent on top just to kind of give me a little bit more drips, a little bit more looser flowiness to the paint, to go in and again express what it is that I was trying to express here. So the first session was more of a look back to 2025 and what I felt 2025 was for me personally. This session, this next day is more so about looking to the future. What we left off with was a really deep colored kind of mess. But as I looked on it and I reflected on it, and as I started the painting process, I also realized that 2026 is a new opportunity to look for the light moments, to look for the beauty in the world, to look, to have a bit of gratitude for the things that are going right and that do feel good for me. So I added in, as I'm dancing and just, exploring and painting, I added in more of those like lighter bits just to kind of create that lightness and create that feeling of optimism, I guess, in a way. There's still an intensity, so I added in some cadmium lemon, so that's a very bright intensity, just to keep in cohesion with the kind of like the greenish tones that were coming through with like the phthalo blue and things like that. Yeah, just kind of going in and adding moments, I guess, of opportunity or moments of optimism that I want to see or I think that I'm projecting for 2026. I really loved playing around with how I held my brush and how I held my different tools. I typically do try to stand back and absorb or observe the painting from a distance to be able to see if there are areas that need a little bit more lightness or a little bit more darkness, or if I'm doing something figurative, to make sure that the proportions kind of feel right. So I'm stepping back a lot to look at the painting as a whole and not just focus on one particular area. But I also consciously hold my brush or use brushes that were longer so that I can not be so intimate onto the painting, but can kind of paint whatever brush stroke that I'm trying to paint from a distance. So that also helped. Using longer brushes helps with being able to do that. And again, going in and using my palette knife again to kind of carve in, add color, deposit color, scrape color back. Because again, life is not so smooth. There's going to, even if I'm thinking optimistically and positively for what I think the future may bring, it's still going to have a little bit of roughness, a little bit of things and challenges that we will experience. But in a way, the scratches kind of create an imperfection that is beautiful. And so I wanted to still capture that, there's an acknowledgement that things are not always going to go how I think that they should go, but they're still going to add to the story of the year and the story of our individual lives. I also played around with using the back of the paintbrush. I thought that the palette knife kind of created lines that were a little too perfect. So I wanted to explore to see if, using different materials to scrape back would give me different widths. It didn't really in this case, but I think for the future, if I ever do this again, I would look to different tools to be able to create different widths of scratches and shapes. I think that would be really cool and interesting. So I'm going in here and also adding in these beautiful bits of blue. I would say that this is when the abstract piece kind of started feeling good, feeling like something that I would put on my own personal wall. I don't think that I'm the best abstract artist by any means, but it felt like these are moments where I'm starting to see beauty in this piece and see something that just felt good. So I'm still going through, flipping it around, trying to find the right orientation, trying to find what feels right in terms of which areas need to be cleaned up, which areas need to have a little bit more color deposited or stripped back. After a certain point, I just felt like this feels right. So this is where I landed. I'm debating on whether or not I want to go back in at some point and add more color to it, but I like the way it looks so far. It definitely represents both a look back at my personal past, but also a look forward to what I hope to be an optimistic future for 2026. We're at the end of today's video. Thank you so much for pressing play and being here with me today. I hope that these last few minutes were calming and peaceful for you, and that you either learned something new, you were entertained, or you just had a good time. If you are interested in seeing more videos like this, definitely hit the subscribe button and hit the like button as well, so I know that you like this type of content. If you'd like to learn more about me and my work, definitely sign up for my email newsletter. I'll have a link in the description box below. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!